Hello and welcome to the first lecture of this new section on establishing a strong leadership in crisis situation. So in this section, we will take a look at how to establish strong leadership in crises. And here in this particular lecture, we will talk about how to train leaders to remain calm, decisive, and empathetic under pressure. So this training leaders to remain calm, decisive, and empathetic is a part of establishing strong leadership crisis to foster a crisis resilient organization culture. So that's the connection, right? So, how do you think you can train leaders to remain calm, decisive, and empathetic under pressure? And first thing before we do that, to take a look at why do we need to do? Why can't we work without being calm, decisive, and empathetic? See, in crisis management, leaders' emotional stability and decision making directly impact the outcome. Outcome of how quickly, how is well do you handle the crisis, right? However, panic, confusion, and lack of empathy can escalate the situation and damage the stakeholders' trust. And that's why you need to train leaders to remain calm, decisive, and empathetic under pressure. So, first step to do that is to build a crisis leadership mindset. Why? Because leaders need mental resilience and emotional intelligence to make rational decisions in high stress situations. When the stress is high, you can become emotional. So you need emotional intelligence to still make rational decisions. And what kind of things that you can do to build such a mindset is to conduct leadership resilience training, right? Where you improve the resilience of the leadership. And in addition to that, you can teach emotional intelligence, EQ skills to your team, and then train leaders to recognize stress triggers and manage anxiety. So these are the few things that you can do to build crisis leadership mindset. Second step would be to make a crisis decision making framework because decisiveness comes from clarity in decision making processes during uncertainty, right? And what are the things you have that you can use? You can implement the OODA loop framework, which is stands for Observe, Orient, Decide, and Act. And that's a good framework for crisis decision making. And then train leaders to use crisis decision trees and risk scenarios and practice data driven rapid decision making. So these are the frameworks that you can train your leaders and team to use in the under a crisis decision making. Third step would be to do scenario based crisis simulations. Why? Because leaders need hand on experiences in handling high pressure situations. And the things that you can do to build that experience is run crisis simulation drills like cybersecurity breach, PR disasters, product recalls. You can also do role playing exercises for media interactions and stakeholder communication, and train leaders in real time decision making during uncertainty. So these are the few things that you can do for simulating the crisis based on specific scenario. The fourth step would be to teach empathy and transparent communication to the leaders because during a crisis, stakeholders need honesty and compassion, not corporate jargon. And what kind of actions can you take? You can train leaders in crisis communication messaging, right? The messaging, three key messages of honesty, transparency, and accountability that we established earlier. Teach active listening skills for handling employees and customer concerns, and build what is called public apology framework for brand reputation management, right? So that's what you can do to teach empathy and transparent communication. The fifth step is to do post crisis reflection and learn continuously because the best leaders reflect, learn, and improve after each crisis. Now, what can you do to do this reflection and learn continuously? First, as we had talked earlier, conduct post-crisis performance reviews, right? Where you identify what worked, what did not work, and continuously update the crisis management playbook. So that's how you can do the reflection and learn continuously. So let's take a look at some real world examples. Real world examples, we will talk of two. One is Satya Nadella of Microsoft CEO, who led the company's transformation during a cultural crisis, during the crisis at the company by focusing on empathy-driven, leadership and transparent communication. Also, we can give you an example of Airbnb CEO Brian Chesky, right? His empathetic responses during COVID-19 layoffs that helped build retrust, right? That helped build trust again. So these are the two good examples of leadership being, taking up ownership and being trained to handle real life crisis situation. So what are the final takeaways? The first one is to build mental resilience and emotional intelligence in the leadership and the crisis management team, the core team. Second is to use structured decision making frameworks like OODA loop, as we talked to you. Third would be to conduct scenario based crisis simulation for the leadership team and the main team, crisis management team. Fourth would be to train in empathetic communication and public messaging. And lastly, to implement continuous learning and feedback loops. So these are the final takeaways. So what do we do next? So we have now coming to the fag end of this course, and we will take a look at the last lecture of how to encourage ethical decision making to maintain public trust so that you can establish strong leadership in crisis. So thank you so much for watching this first lecture on establishing strong leadership in crisis. I hope you continue to learn new things, continuing to enjoy, and I do look forward to see you again in the next lecture. Please feel free to message me if you have any questions. I'll be happy to answer your questions, and do download the PDF file to take a look at anything that you need to.